This is the fourth installment in our series covering the history of every banned card in the expanded format. Today we'll be covering the alternative win conditions created by a duo of Unown with two of the most unique abilities the game has ever seen. First up, we have Unown Damage. November 2018's Lost Thunder expansion introduced to the game three special Unown. Each had some of the strangest abilities the game had ever seen. When Unown Damage was your active Pokemon, if there were 66 or more damage counters in play, you may use its ability, and if you do, you win the game. When Unown Hand was your active Pokemon, if you had 35 or more cards in your hand, you could use its ability to win the game. Finally, if Unown Missing was your active Pokemon, and your opponent had 12 or more supporter cards in the Lost Zone, you could use its ability to win the game. While Unown Missing was far too unreliable to build a deck around in either the standard or expanded formats, given that some decks didn't even play 12 supporter cards in the first place, the other two Unown caused their fair share of troubles. Unown Damage became the focus of the most insane combo the game has ever seen. Getting 66 damage counters, or 660 damage, on your Pokemon was no easy feat. It would never occur naturally. There weren't enough resources available to take advantage of Unown Damage in the standard format, but players quickly realized it had incredible potential in the expanded format, alongside a variety of cards aging back to its very first set, Black and White, released almost 9 years prior. First, you put Team Magma's Secret Base from the Double Crisis expansion in play. Whenever any player puts a Pokemon from their hand onto their bench, excluding Team Magma's Pokemon, Team Magma's Secret Base puts 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. Next, you put the Klefki from Steam Siege expansion onto your bench, giving it 2 damage counters from your Team Magma's Secret Base. Klefki has a unique ability, Wonderlock. Once during your turn, if Klefki is on your bench, you may discard all cards attached to it to attach it to one of your Pokemon as a Pokemon tool card. Any damage done to the Pokemon Klefki is attached to by attacks from your opponent's Mega Evolution Pokemon is prevented. At the end of your opponent's next turn, you discard Klefki. This card saw occasional play to counter Mega Evolution Pokemon while they were popular, but it was more commonly paired with Garbodor and the Garbon Toxin ability. If Garbodor had a Pokemon tool card attached to it, each Pokemon in play, in each player's hand, and in each player's discard pile had no abilities except for Garbon Toxin. You can turn Klefki into a tool card and attach it to Garbodor at the end of your turn, preventing your opponent's Pokemon from using abilities. Then, as Klefki got discarded at the end of your opponent's turn, Garbodor's Garbotoxin would deactivate, allowing you to use abilities again on your turn. But Klefki was used for neither of these purposes in this combo, as we'll get into in a moment. After putting Klefki into the bench, players would use Black and White's Rayuniclus's Damage Swap ability to move both damage counters that Team Magma's Secret Base had put onto Klefki over to a different Pokemon. Most commonly, one of two of the Magikarp or Wailord Tag Team GX. While this card was a formidable attacker in the expanded format alongside Blastoise, Magikarp and Wailord GX was included in this combo simply for its enormous HP stat of 300, which will become important shortly. After the damage is moved off of Klefki, players would use its Wonderlock ability to attach it to any one of their other Pokemon. Then use Weavile's Tearaway ability or Masquerain's identical tool reversal ability on Klefki. As often as you'd like during your turn, these abilities allow you to put a Pokemon tool card attached to one of your Pokemon into your hand. The whole process could be repeated indefinitely to generate any amount of damage on your Pokemon. Players would repeatedly bench Klefki, put 2 damage counters on it from Team Magma's Secret Base, move them onto Magikarp and Wailord GX with Rayuniclus's Damage Swap, then use Weavile or Masquerain's ability to put the Klefki into their hand again. After 2 Magikarp and Wailord GX had 290 damage moved onto them, 80 more damage could then be spread amongst your other Pokemon, making for a total of 660 damage, or 66 damage counters. Finally, Unown could be swapped into the active spot to use its damage ability to win the game. Despite only a 68th and 79th place finish in the first expanded format regional championship after the combo had been discovered, the Pokémon Company decided to take action. In their January 2019 ban list update, they banned Unown and issued the following statement. With multiple combos that exist in the expanded format, the damage ability of Unown could be used to win the game on their first or second turn. Even though these combos haven't yet proven to be successful in tournament play, they will become easier to achieve with the release of new cards, so Unown is being banned as a preventative measure. Unlike Unown Damage, Unown Hand's win condition of building to a 35 card hand was reasonable through more natural gameplay. The Sun and Moon era featured many powerful cards for wall stall archetypes, and Unown was a crucial piece. These strategies forced opponents to deal with Pokemon which were extremely difficult to knock out while they were barraged by energy disruption and a variety of healing cards, eventually winning through decking out their opponent or using Unown's hand ability. In the standard format, common wall Pokemon included Vileplume, its disgusting pollen ability preventing basic Pokemon from attacking at all while it was in the active spot. Shining Legends Hoopa, which is immune to damage from attacks of Pokemon EX and Pokemon GX thanks to its Scoundrel Guard ability, and Bronzong from the Team Up expansion, which is immune to damage from the attacks of Fire-type Pokemon as a result of its Heatproof ability. If none of these abilities shut down an opponent's strategy completely, Lucario and Melmetal Tag GX and its 260 HP combined with damage reduction effects and healing cards could often outlive an opponent on its own. For one colorless energy, Lucario Melmetal GX's Full Metal Wall GX attack states that, for the rest of the game, all of your Metal-type Pokemon take 30 less damage from attacks. If Lucario Melmetal GX has an extra colorless energy attached to it in addition to the attack's costs, Full Metal Wall GX also discards all energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. This whole attack cost, including the bonus effect of discard energy, could be provided by a single double colorless energy. Finally, Lucario Melmetal GX can make use of the Metal Frying Pan, a tool card which removes the weaknesses of any Metal-type Pokemon it's attached to and reduces all damage done to the Pokemon by 30. All of these walls made use of healing cards, Max Potion, and Acerola. Max Potion is an item card that allows you to heal all damage from one of your Pokemon, then discard all energy attached to that Pokemon. Outside of Lucario Melmetal GX using its 1 per turn GX attack, these Pokemon would rarely have energy attached to them because they wouldn't be attacking, so Max Potion had no downside. Acerola is a supporter card that allows you to put one of your damaged Pokemon in play and all cards attached to it into your hand. Acerola could be used to pivot between wall Pokemon depending on the situation, or just use to cycle between two of the same wall Pokemon, acting as an additional healing card. In the expanded format, players also had access to the supporter card AZ. Similar to Acerola, AZ allows you to put one of your Pokemon from play into your hand, but AZ doesn't require the Pokemon to be damaged and discards all cards attached to it. As for disruption, there was no shortage of options in both the standard and expanded formats. The standard format included the item cards Crushing Hammer and Enhanced Hammer, as well as 3 powerful disruptive supporter cards. Crushing Hammer allows you to flip a coin. If heads, discard energy attached to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Enhanced Hammer allows you to discard a special energy attached to one of your opponent's Pokemon. The supporter card Plumeria requires you to discard 2 cards from your hand, then allows you to discard an energy card attached to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Faba is a supporter card that allows you to put a Pokemon tool or energy card attached to one of your opponent's Pokemon, or any stadium card in play, into the Lost Zone. Team Skull Grunt is a supporter card that forces your opponent to reveal their hand, then allows you to discard 2 special energy cards from it. Adding on cards from the expanded format, the supporter card Team Rocket's Handiwork allows you to flip 2 coins, then discard the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck for each heads. This effect further winning by deck out and occasionally discarding critical resources. Finally, supporter card Team Flare Grunt allows you to discard an energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. What truly pushes these strategies over the edge was Lusamine, first released in 2017's Crimson Invasion expansion. Lusamine allows you to put any combination of 2 supporter or stadium cards from your discard pile into your hand. Lusamine critically didn't exclude other Lusamine in your discard pile from being recovered by its effect, which allowed infinite recycling of supporter cards. You could play Acerola to heal a Pokemon, then next play Lusamine to recycle the Acerola and another Lusamine, and repeat the loop. If your opponent wasn't 2-hit KOing whatever wall Pokemon you had active, this loop would allow you to heal it infinitely. You could also use Lusamine to recycle any of the aforementioned disruptive supporters. Crucially, Lusamine allowed you to build up an excess of resources in your hand, which would make getting to 35 card hand requirement for Unown's hand ability very reasonable. However, before Unown was ever able to see competitive success in the expanded format, its partner in crime, the Lusamine, was banned due to its exploitation by the expanded format's 2 most notorious attackers, Seismitoad EX and Zoroark GX. But this time combined into one archetype. Once during your turn, Zoroark GX's trade ability allows you to discard a card from your hand, then draw 2. With 4 Zoroark GXs in play, trade allows you to draw up to 8 cards per turn, quickly resulting in access to any card you wanted. Riotous Beating attack was deadly as well, dealing 20 damage times the number of Pokemon in play for only 2 colorless energy. With a full bench, Riotous Beating does an already respectable 120 damage, but could be almost doubled thanks to Choice Band adding an additional 30 damage and Skyfield allowing players to have up to 8 Pokemon on their bench. At this point, Zoroark GX took up well over 30% of the metagame at an average expanded tournament, most commonly paired with the combination of Garbodor and Klefki that was mentioned earlier. Zoroark GX was the most consistent deck, but resulted in extremely volatile mirror matches, where the player who established Garbodor's Garbotoxin first can end up with a huge advantage. Wishing to avoid sacrificing Zoroark GX's consistency and versatility, players looked for a partner for it that allowed them to gain an edge over the common hyper-aggressive Zoroark GX variants. Players turned to Seismitoad EX and Quaking Punch attack to create a new, slow, and disruptive take on Zoroark GX in the expanded format. For 2 colorless energy, Quaking Punch does 30 damage and prevents your opponent from playing any item cards during the next turn. As always, item lock is a simple and effective way to slow down the game by crippling an opponent's setup. Common consistency cards like Ultra Ball couldn't be used, making it difficult for players to establish a board full of Zoroark GX to draw within the first place. But the most important item card Quaking Punch disabled was Versus Seeker. Versus Seeker is an item card that allows you to put a supporter card from your discard pile into your hand, effectively acting as extra copies of any supporter card you've already played. Most decks in the expanded format have become increasingly greedy with the number of supporter cards they included thanks to Tapu Lele GX's Wonder Tag ability. When you play Tapu Lele GX from your hand onto your bench, you may search your deck for a supporter card and put it into your hand. Players relied on Wonder Tag to find their limited consistency supporter cards like Professor Sycamore and In, then use Verse Seeker to reuse them throughout the rest of the game. Seismitoad EX stopped this strategy completely, as long as it was able to keep up its incessant stream of Quaking Punches. Fighting Fury Belt, a tool card that gives any basic Pokemon that's attached to 40 more HP and makes their attacks do an additional 10 damage, could be attached to Seismitoad EX to reach knockouts faster and, crucially, allowed to survive any attack from an opposing Zoroark GX. If an opponent was ever able to get ahead on prize cards, Counter Catcher could be used to bring a Pokemon that was unable to attack into the active spot. You can only play Counter Catcher when you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent. It allows you to switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active Pokemon. Seismitoad EX's item lock would then make it very difficult for the stranded Pokemon to move out of the active spot or find the necessary energy required to attack. Players would then play a wide variety of disruptive supporter cards to dismantle their opponent's attackers and strip their hand and deck of resources that could be used to set up others, including the aforementioned Plumeria, Faba, Team Skull Grunt, and the Team Rocket's handiwork. Acerola was also included in this archetype to heal damaged Seismitoad EX and Zoroark GX. All of these supporters were able to be recycled infinitely with a pair of Lusamines. Zoroark GX was the perfect partner for Seismitoad EX in this strategy. Riotous Beating acted as an excellent burst of damage to close out the game or remove threats to Seismitoad EX, and its trade ability ensured easy access to any of the aforementioned supporter cards as well as double colorless energy, which could fuel both of Zoroark GX and Seismitoad EX's attacks. The Pokémon Company addressed this strategy in the January 2019 update to the ban list by adding Lusamine to the ban list. In their announcement, they explained that the card deserved its ban because it allows for an infinite cycle of supporter cards because it can get back different Lusamines plus other supporter cards. This has created several strategies that negatively affect the expanded format. It can also create stalemate situations where neither player is able to win. With Lusamine out of the picture, Unown HAND was never able to see success in any expanded regional championships. So why was it banned 10 months later? The Pokémon Company International, which distributes cards outside of Asia and runs all the events in those regions, has separate tournament structures to the Pokémon Company in Japan. The yearly standard format rotation wasn't consistent worldwide until this year, and the rules and ban list for the entire expanded format weren't consistent worldwide until March 2021. Japan's expanded format ban list allowed that hand disruption strategies discussed in part 2 of this series for much longer than the international expanded format did. Most of these strategies outclassed the defensive ones based around Lusamine and completely limited Unown's viability, which relied on building large hand sizes. When the Japanese Pokémon Company finally took action and banned the hand disruption and prize card manipulation strategies discussed in the previous parts of the series, they decided to ban Unown and leave Lusamine off the ban list. The Pokémon Company in Japan never gave insight as to why they made this decision, so we can only speculate. The Pokémon Company internationally banned Unown as well in an effort to maintain a more global ban list, although they kept Lusamine banned, fearing similar strategies would come to dominate the format again. What we can be sure of though is that, had Unown not been banned then, it likely would have been banned a couple years later when Milotic from the Evolving Strikes expansion was released. Milotic's Do Guard ability prevents all effects of your opponent's supporter cards done to you in your hand. Strategies that try to aggressively accumulate 35 cards in hand through a variety of attacks and abilities were never more than a gimmick, because hand disruption cards like In and Marnie were commonplace in decks in both the standard and expanded formats. Wall stall archetypes would wait until your opponent depleted all of the disruptive supporter cards to try and win with Unown, but aggressive Unown strategies didn't have that luxury until Milotic. Do Guard prevents the hand disruption effects of In and Marnie, so players could have been free to build their hand up to 35 cards while completely ignoring their opponent. In March of 2021, the Pokémon Company International decided to unify their ban list with Japan's, and Lusamine was banned alongside Wally, which we discussed in the first part of the series. Alongside Shiftry, these 3 cards became the only cards that ever be unbanned from any of the Pokemon's formats. The Pokemon format has sped up significantly since Lusamine's original ban, and strategies relying on its infinite recycling supporters have become too slow to be viable in the current metagame. However, if the expanded format slows down again, Lusamine has the potential to return to its former state. In the update, which included Lusamine's removal from the ban list, the Pokémon Company reassured players that, if Lusamine turns out to be problematic again, this decision will be re-evaluated. Alright, and that's all for this installment of the history of every banned card in the expanded format. Look out for the next part where we'll be going a deep dive into the history of the expanded control decks and the most powerful consistency cards in the expanded format's history. And as always, if you have any ideas for future videos similar to this one, please let us know down in the comments below.